Welcome. So just to review, those of you that are new to this meeting, this is a little different from any other big book meeting you may or may not have attended. And I always like to say that it was built out of my own self-will run riot, which means I'd sit there and go, well, if I ran this big book meeting, I would do it that way. So I started my own. Now, the format of the meeting, unlike other meetings where one person reads and then chair, one person reads, there's only one person that reads in this meeting. That would be me. But during the reading, we encourage crosstalk. So if there's a word you don't know, we might come across Armistice Day today, and some people go, oh, what's that? Or doggerel. Some stuff like that, you might want to say, what's that? Or what did he mean by that? Just shout it out. There's a lot of people with a lot of time and a lot of knowledge about this program and the big book that can answer questions back and forth, okay? So during the reading, it's like sitting on the couch going, hold on, what was that? All right? Now, after the reading, then we'll do the 12 traditions, and after the 12 traditions, we do a half an hour of sharing on what we read or questions about what we read, okay? It's not the kind of meeting where we check in and share about our cat for 10 minutes, right? All right, are we ready to get ready? Do this? This is a big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. When I first got it, I would go, well, that's awfully big, I'm not reading it, right? Then I realized, hold on, it's in 2 parts. These are stories, very important. The stories change with each of our 4 editions. This is the program of Alcoholics Anonymous in the first 164 pages, okay? Now, since it's hard to get a hold of a book written in 1939 or 1955, if you have this book, Experience, Strength, and Hope, and the 4th edition, you have all the stories from the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd edition that are no longer in the book. So you basically have everything ever written in the book because we don't change the first 164 pages, okay? Which outlines our program. Everybody with me so far? Yeah. All right, this is the contents page, which we'll find at the very beginning of the book. Does anybody need a big book? It's always a good idea to have a big book in a big book meeting. There are some up front here if you want to read along. So this is the preface or the contents page of the 164 pages of the book, okay? Let's go back to 1938, 39. So this is the contents page of the 164 pages of our big book, that small section in the beginning, which outlines our program, right? Now, the preface says, first off, we don't change the 164 pages. And then at the end of it, it says, we hope when you read this, or one of the many stories that you go, oh, I felt like that. I think this might work for me. I might be an alcoholic, right? That, me too. Kind of the beginning of like getting steps 1 and steps 2. The forwards then for each of the 4 editions, the first one says this is going to be precisely how we have recovered, which means there's clear-cut directions in there. The forward to the 2nd edition has some history about who we are and how we became where, or come to where we're at now, okay? Then the 3rd and the 4th edition talks about the changes in our growth, all right? The big book starts right here at the doctor's opinion, okay? We have 2 founders, Bill Wilson, Dr. Bob. This wasn't written by Dr. Bob. It was written by Dr. Silkworth, the man who tried to help many of us alcoholics, like in detox or down at the ER, right? It's almost like the doctor that when you walk in, he goes like, you again. Sorry, we can't seem to fix you. You've got this allergy. You're irritable, restless, and discontent, right? But whatever these men have to say seems to work. You basically need a spiritual slap on the head, and we have no pill for that. So listen to what these men have to say, and that was the good doctor's suggestion, Dr. Silkworth. Then we have chapter 1, Bill's story. That's what we're reading tonight. Oh, yes! So just like our first founder now, Bill Wilson, just like in a speaker meeting, Bill tells his story, his whole story. Maybe in there you might go, oh my gosh, I'm an alcoholic. That's me, right? We're going to get more into that, obviously, during the reading. Right after that, it's almost like as if we were the original members of AA. It's like we all chimed in then and said, you know, a lot of us were just like Bill. Some of us normally wouldn't mix, but we seem to have this camaraderie because we've come out of this terrible thing called alcoholism, and now those that wouldn't normally mix are now in this fellowship together, right? Don't worry about it. We got a solution. Come along for the ride. And more about alcoholism. How many times have we read it in a meeting? It starts off with, none of us wanted to admit that we were real alcoholics, right? Nobody wants to say they're different from their fellows. And then it's almost like in a participation meeting. We have Jim the car salesman, Fred the accountant, the jaywalker. And maybe in there you might find something that makes you relate to and say, oh my gosh, I'm one of those, right? Now, up until this point, we've talked a lot about spirituality. We have a whole chapter dedicated to don't overthink the God thing, all right? If you got a God, good. If you don't worry about it. Come on along for the ride. But you seem to have lacked that power, and you're a little insane, right? But you lack that power by yourself. So just believe, or are you willing to believe that there's something bigger than you, other than you, that can help you not die of this thing, right? A power greater than you? Then that's enough to keep going. And then we get into how it works. Remember, when we read A, B, and C after the chapter 5 readings, it says A, oh my gosh, I'm an alcoholic. That me too. No human power, not even me going, I should stop, has gotten me to stop. Something bigger than me is going to have to work, right? Originally in the first manuscript, this is what you were talking about, it says, if you are not convinced of these 3 pertinent ideas, A, oh my God, I'm an alcoholic. B, no human power can relieve me of my alcoholism. And C, that God would if he were sought. That's the premise for steps 1 and 2. So originally, right there, it said, if you're not convinced, please reread this or throw the book away. So in other words, it's saying that's where we find steps 1 and 2. That's where we find the acknowledgement of, I think I can relate. I might be one of you guys. No matter what I've tried, no matter what the doctor said, wow, I'm an alcoholic. That A, B, and C. So they took that line out, and it flows right into the next paragraph that says, but if you are convinced, in other words, you've just done steps 1 and 2, then now you're at step 3. This chapter includes step 3 and step 4, where we do the inventory, learn some facts about ourselves, and into action. We get a sponsor, we learn how to tell our story, some characteristics about ourselves, good and bad, how to clean up the record of our past, and how to keep ourselves in check. And now we've come into this, we're not in like demoralizing, we're not in that place where we're in fear and remorse, but we're free. And how to stay free and meditate. And working with others is all about step 12, how we carry that message to another person and put our hand out. To the wives, to the family afterwards, to the employers, really good chapters. They describe the alcoholic as well as the fact that in 1939, remember, we weren't sure who was going to pick up this book. Sometimes it's not us, the alcoholic. It might be the employer or the family of or the wife of that's going, how do I help him? So we have some instructions for Al-Anon families as well. Basically, if you got a drunk one of us, give them a book, send them to a meeting. And a vision for you, we read it at the end of every meeting, right? We had 2 and 3 years sober when we wrote this book, so we're pretty much going, we realize we know only a little. Here's our book, Don't Die, right? So this vision for you, the last part of the 164 pages, sums up all of this, and it's like our end to our program. The first story is always Dr. Bob's, so here we have Dr. Bob and Bill's story. Bill is who we're reading right now tonight. Any questions? Yes! All right. Chapter 1, Bill's story. Is everybody ready? Let me ask a few things before we read the first page. When I first read the first page, right, I remember reading this when I was new and going, whatever. I want to skim and get to the good stuff. What's going to get me well? Hold on. I don't understand that. But the first page is really pretty powerful. How many people have looked back and went, oh my gosh, that's like a God shot, a coincidence, something that was, right? Bill had one of those. Normal people don't usually look back on that. So Bill was born November 26th of 1895, and he starts off his story. War fever ran high in the New England town to which we new young officers from Plattsburgh were assigned. And we were flattered when the first citizens took us into their homes, making us feel heroic. Here was love, applause, war, moments sublime with intervals hilarious. I was part of life at last. And in the midst of this excitement, I discovered liquor. I forgot the strong warnings and the prejudice, I don't like it, right, of my people concerning drink. So people in those days did not like it when you drank alcohol, and they were trying to tell them it's not good for you, right? He's like, I forgot those prejudice or the people that didn't like it when they told me not to drink. In time, we sailed for over there. I was lonely and again turned to alcohol. All right, so over there, it's capitals. It's the name of a song. It was actually one of our most popular patriotic songs in those days. Yes. So, everybody now. Over there, send the word over there, that the Yanks are coming, and we won't stop till it's over there. Isn't that it? Something like that. In other words, we're going over. I am not a singer. I'm more the dancer, right? All right, so what he's saying is he sailed for, it was one of our patriotic songs about going over to Europe and fighting the war. So he's saying we sailed for over there, right? So now, we landed in England and I visited Winchester Cathedral. Much moved. I wandered outside. I'm thinking, I always assume he means much drunk. But I wandered outside. My attention was caught by the doggerel on an old tombstone. A doggerel, like a rhythmic saying. There once was a girl from Nantucket. Right? So he looks at this tombstone. Those of you that have the book has a picture of the tombstone in there. It is real. He bumps into this tombstone, and on the tombstone it says, "Here lies a Hampshire grenadier." In other words, they're in the city of Hampshire, he's talking about. "Here lies one of our soldiers, a grenadier, who caught his death drinking cold small beer. He was an alcoholic soldier. A good soldier's never forgot, whether he died by musket in battle or by pot, which is how we distilled some of the beer." Right? Does not mean he was smoking pot. It means he died drinking, and it doesn't matter whether he was an alcoholic soldier that died in battle or he died of alcoholism, he will never forget him because he's one of our soldiers, right? Does Bill stumble onto that tombstone and go, "Wow, I'm just a few years younger than this soldier, and I'm a soldier about to embark on alcoholism. I should take that as a warning"? No, of course, none of us do, right? But how powerful is that? What's ominous? Dun, dun, dun. Kind of like something's going to happen in the movie, right? He says, "Ominous warning," which I failed to heed. I was 22 and a veteran now of foreign wars. I went home at last, came back to America. We're about 1917 now, for those of you keeping dates. I fancied myself a leader. 22 years old, I had just come back from war, of course. For had not the men of my battery given me a special token of appreciation? Pat on the back, I probably got a medal, right? My talent for leadership, I imagine, would place me at the head of vast enterprises, which I would manage with the utmost assurance. I'm going to conquer the world, right? So I took a night law course and obtained employment as an investigator for a surety company, like an insurance company. The drive for success was on. I'd proved to the world I was important. My work took me all about Wall Street, and little by little, I became interested in the market. Many people lost money, but some became very rich. Why not I? I should be that group, right? I studied economics and business as well as law. Potential alcoholic that I was, I nearly failed my law course. At one of the finals, I was too drunk to think or write. Though my drinking was not yet continuous, it disturbed my wife. We had long talks when I would still her forebodings by telling her that men of great genius conceive their best projects while drunk. All right, forebodings. What are forebodings? She's going like this. Please don't go out and drink again tonight. She's like, you know what I mean? A soft kind of like trying to convince him not, and he's going, I almost remember this kind of, did you know Einstein was an alcoholic? Some of the greatest minds in the world were alcoholic and drunk when they created some of the greatest masterpieces. I'm fine. I got this. Right? I stilled her. I calmed her down by telling her, you know, men of great genius did some wonderful things while drunk. I got this, right? How many of you have done that? Yeah. I suspect a few. That most majestic constructions of philosophical thought were so derived. By the time I had completed the course, I knew law was not for me. I like when I don't show up for class a whole bunch of times, and I don't, I have all the, I'm going to do this, and then I don't show up because I'm drunk or I'm hungover, and all of a sudden I'm like, I didn't want to be a lawyer anyway. Yeah, that was it. That's why, right? But the inviting maelstrom, almost like that violent turmoil of Wall Street, had me in its grip. Business and financial leaders were my heroes. Now, out of this alloy and drink and speculation, I commenced to forge the weapon that would one day turn in its flight like a boomerang and all but cut me to ribbons. Of course, nobody goes, "What?" I did. When I first read that, I'm like, hold, let me read. Boomerang, forged weapon, what is he talking about? So out of this drink, he's drinking, and speculation, he turns like, I turn to Jackie and I go, "No, go ahead and buy the car. I got a scratcher tonight. I'm sure I'm going to win. I know this is going to happen, right? We're going to win millions tonight. I know it. Go, 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 go," right? So out of this speculation of Wall Street and stocks, he's mixing, like, "I'm going to do this. This is going to be big. This is going to be big. Just trust me." With his drinking, he was forging, like you pour metal to make weapons and things like that. He was forging or pouring the mixture or concoction that was like a boomerang, right? That would one day come back at him and whop, cut him to shreds. That's what we do with all the stuff that we do when we're out there, right? And we're thinking, we're scheming, we're doing, and all of a sudden it's like, what just happened? Make sense? Any questions? All right. Living modestly, my wife and I saved $1,000. It went into certain securities, then cheap and rather unpopular. I rightly imagined that they would someday have great rise. I failed to persuade my broker friends to send me out looking over factories and management, but my wife and I decided to go anyway. I had developed a theory that most people lost money in stocks through ignorance. They don't know as much as I do. Right. Through ignorance of the markets. I discovered many more reasons later on. So anybody ever see the picture of Bill and Lois in the Harley, in the sidecar? It's true. The t-shirts that say Bill Wilson rode a Harley. So we gave up our positions and off we roared on a motorcycle. Sidecar stuffed with tent, blankets, and a change of clothes. 3 huge volumes of financial reference service. This is about 1925, right? Our friends thought a lunacy commission should be appointed. They thought I was crazy. Perhaps they were right. I had had some success at speculation on, let's just, instead of stocks, we can say scratchers or lottery tickets. You know, I won a couple bucks there. On speculation, he was speculating on different businesses that were going to prove to be profitable. So we had a little money from this, but we once worked on a farm for a month to avoid drawing on our small amount of money, our small capital that we had. That was the last honest manual labor from my part for many a day. We covered the whole eastern United States in a year. At the end, my reports to Wall Street got me a position there, and the use of a large expense account. Yes! The exercise of an option, in other words, he cashed in something, right, brought in more money, leaving us with a profit of several $1,000s that year. Oh, things are looking better, aren't they? I got some cash in my pocket. All of a sudden, I don't know what was wrong yesterday. I must have just overreacted. I'm so much better now. So for the next few years, fortune threw money and applause. Oh, look, there goes Bill, and look, oh, good for you. Money and applause my way. I had arrived. My judgment and ideas were followed by many to the tune of paper millions. Now, the great boom of the late 20s was seething and swelling. Everybody see like the flappers and dresses and everybody in the jazz clubs, right? Drink was taking an important and exhilarating part of my life. There was loud talk in the jazz places uptown. Everyone spent in thousands and chattered in millions. In other words, we're throwing money around and we're talking like we got more than we had, right? Scoffers will scoff and be damned. No? Everybody's got that one? Yeah. Scoff is to go, right? Haters will hate and whoop, right? That's kind of the saying now. It's like, yeah, you don't like it. Haters will hate, right? We have the same sayings today. It's just then they used the word scoff. Scoffers will scoff. I got money in my pocket. I made a lot of fair weather friends. When it's sunny out, people are out, and people are there. When I got money in my pocket, right, and I could buy everybody at the bar a drink, I've got a lot of friends. When the money's gone, where'd they go? And that's kind of what happened, because his drinking then assumed more serious proportions, continuing all day and almost every night. The remonstrance of my friends terminated in a row, and I became a lone wolf, drinking alone. There were many unhappy scenes in our sumptuous apartment. There had been no real infidelity for loyalty to my wife, helped at times by extreme drunkenness, kept me out of those scrapes. So he's saying he didn't cheat on his wife because most of the time he was too drunk to do so. I love this because do you ever do something and all of a sudden you're going to become the best one at it? Right? I could go play miniature golf or even golf on TV, and I'm going to be the greatest golfer in the world from this point forward. So, in 1929, I contracted golf fever. We went at once to the country, my wife to applaud, while I started to overtake Walter Hagen. Just put Tiger Woods in there. In other words, I played one game of miniature golf, and the next day I'm going to be the next Tiger Woods. I got this. I'm going to be good. Oh, wait till you see. Everybody's going to love me, right? Liquor caught up with me much faster than I caught up with Walter. Of course. I began to be jittery in the morning. Now, golf permitted drinking every day and every night. It was fun to carom. That's one of the words I always get wrong. Forgive me. It was fun to cruise around the exclusive course which had inspired such awe in me as a lad. I had acquired the impeccable coat of tan one sees upon the well-to-do. The local banker watched me whirl fat checks in and out of his till with amusing skepticism. In other words, the guy that's the cashier, right, is watching me like give him $100 for a cup of coffee going, keep the change, right? And he's like, yeah, kind of smirking, this will last long, right? But that's what we do when we're big, when we're too big for what we got going on, right? Then abruptly in October 1929, hell broke loose on the New York Stock Exchange. After one of those days of inferno, I wobbled from a hotel bar into a brokerage office. It was 8 o'clock, 5 hours after the market, like the stock market, right, had closed. The ticker was still chattering. I was staring at an inch of tape which bore the inscription XYZ, 32. It had been 52 that morning. Now, XYZ does not mean anything. It could be Disney's initials. It could be something else. It could be ABC. It could be, whatever company. He's just using it as an example of like XYZ company. Had basically, let's say, the ticker tapes coming out saying you're worth $32 million, and this morning, just a couple hours ago, it was $52 million. In other words, you just lost a whole lot of money, and a lot of people did. And that's what happened during the crash, right? Oh my gosh. I was finished, and so were many of my friends. The papers reported men jumping to their deaths from the towers in New York of high finance. This disgusted me. I would not jump. I went back to the bar. Yeah. My friends had dropped several million since 10 o'clock. So what? Tomorrow's another day. As I drank, that old fierce determination to win came back. How many people can have a really horrible thing happen or crushing, and all of a sudden we start drinking, we're like, oh, I don't know, I'm fine. No, it's good now. Everything does not seem as bad, right? The next morning, what do we sometimes do? Find somebody to get us out of the scrape, right? So the next morning, I telephoned a friend in Montreal. He had plenty of money left, and I thought I had better go to Canada. Anybody here do geographicals? That friend ran out of money and the stuff that I might need or want, and all of a sudden I'm going to go over here. You're my best friend now. Oh, back over to Mom's house. Or, right? We do that kind of stuff. By the following spring, we were living in our custom style. I felt like Napoleon, returning from Elba. No St. Helena for me. Now, Napoleon, everybody knows who Napoleon is? Short guy with a complex. He had won great victory, and he was also locked up. So basically, he's saying, I'm in Elba. I'm victorious right now. No getting caught for me, right? But drinking caught up with me again, and my generous friend said, you gotta go, dude. You gotta go. This time we stayed broke. So we went to live with my wife's parents. Aha. I found a job, then lost it as a result of a brawl with a taxi driver. I'm sure it was his fault, right? Merciful, no one could guess that I was to have no real employment for 5 years, or hardly draw a sober breath. My wife began to work in a department store, coming home exhausted to find me drunk. I became an unwelcome hanger-on at brokerage places. Liquor ceased to be a luxury. It became a necessity. Bathtub gin, 2 bottles a day, and often 3, got to be routine. How many people had a routine? Get up, try to see how we can get through the day, so we can get some more, so we can get through tonight, so we can get to the morning, yeah. Sometimes a small deal would net a few $100s. And do you think he went home and gave it to his wife and said, thanks for keeping up the bills at the house, here, I'm going to contribute? No, we don't do that. I'd pay my bills at the bars and delicatessens. This went on endlessly. I began to waken very early in the morning, shaking violently. A tumbler full of gin, followed by a half dozen bottles of beer, would be required if I was to eat any breakfast. Nevertheless, I still thought I could control the situation. I got this. And there were periods of sobriety that renewed my wife's hope. How many times have family looked at us and gone, I think they got it this time, and the next year they're like, oh, right? Gradually, things got worse. The house was taken over by the mortgage holder. My mother-in-law died. My wife and father-in-law became very ill. Now we're at 1930, okay? Then I got a promising business opportunity. Stocks were at a low point in 1932, and I had somehow formed a group to buy. I was to share generously in the profits. Whew. I went on a prodigious bender, and that chance vanished. Anybody have that really good job or that really good thing, and it's all going to come together now, and all of a sudden it's like, damn. Kind of like that, just don't drink before you go to court, damn! Just don't drink before you get in the car, just darn! Right? Just don't drink before you have to do that test, before you have, I woke up, and this had to be stopped. I saw I could not take so much as one drink. I was through forever. Before then, I had written a lot of sweet promises, but my wife happily observed that this time I meant business, and so I did. Yay, right? Shortly afterwards, I came home drunk. No! Don't! Gosh, I believe him every time I read that. Where had been my fight? Where had been my high resolve? I simply didn't know. It hadn't even come to mind. Someone pushed a drink my way, and I had taken it. Was I crazy? I began to wonder, for such an appalling lack of perspective, or thought, seemed to be near being just that. Renewing my resolve, I tried again. Some time passed, and confidence began to be replaced by cocksuredness. I could laugh at the gin mills. I remember walking through Vaughn's with my 30-day chip down the liquor aisle going, nah, I got 30 days now, I'm good. Yeah, I stopped drinking 30 days ago. Yeah, I'm good, right? I could go to the bars now, right? Anybody else? You're looking at me. I think some of you can relate. Yeah, we get a little cocky. So his confidence began to be replaced by cocksuredness, and I could laugh at the gin mills. Now I had what it takes. One day I walked into a cafe to telephone a friend, and in no time, I was beating on the bar, asking myself how this happened. As the whiskey rose to my head, I told myself I'd manage better next time. But might as well get good and drunk till then. And I did. Yeah. How many people do that when you go like this? You go, screw it, I already got to get a newcomer chip. Might as well go for the gusto, right? Shit, I already ruined that. I'm already going to have to call my sponsor. Oh, but now the remorse, horror, the hopelessness of the next morning are unforgettable. The courage to do battle was just not there. Anybody ever get DTs or shakes? Yeah, I like this group. My brain raced uncontrollably, and there was a terrible sense of impending calamity. I hardly dared cross the street lest I collapse and be run over by an early morning truck, for it was scarcely daylight. An all-night place supplied me with a dozen glasses of ale. Oh, my writhing nerves were stilled at last. The morning paper told me that the market had gone to hell again. Well, so had I. Now, the market would recover, but I wouldn't. That was a hard thought. Should I kill myself? No, not now. Then the mental fog lifted. Gin will fix that. So 2 bottles and oblivion. The mind and body are marvelous mechanisms, for mine endured this agony for 2 more years. Sometimes, anybody ever steal from family? Never! Or steal from anybody? Yeah, nobody here. The mind and body are marvelous mechanism, for mine endured this for 2 more years. Sometimes I stole from my wife's slender purse when the morning terror and madness were on me. Again, I swayed dizzy before an open window or the medicine cabinet where there was poison, cursing myself for a weakling. What kind of poison's in the medicine cabinet, do you think? Sedative, something maybe to just end this, right? There were flights from the city and country and back as my wife and I sought escape. In other words, Lois kept taking him out of town to think that if she gets him away from those darn friends and away from that alcohol, everything's going to be all right. Then came, geographics again, with family trying to do it this time. Then came the night when the physical and mental torture were so hellish, I feared I would burst through my window, sash, curtain and all. Somehow I managed to drag my mattress to the floor, or the lower floor, lest I suddenly leap. How many people have thought and gotten to that point where you just go, I understand what it's like when people just end it. Yeah. Shit. The doctor came, oh thank goodness, with a heavy sedative. That'll work. Next day found me drinking both gin and sedative. Of course. This combination landed me on the rocks. People feared for my sanity, and so did I. I could eat little or nothing when drinking, and I was 40 pounds underweight. My brother-in-law is a physician, and through his kindness and that of my mother, I was placed in a nationally known hospital. Anybody know which one that is? Towns. The doctor's opinion that we read last week, okay? For the mentally and physical rehabilitation of alcoholics. Under the so-called belladonna treatment, my brain cleared. Hydrotherapy and mild exercise would help much. Best of all, I met a kind doctor, Dr. Silkworth, who wrote the doctor's opinion, who explained that though certainly selfish and foolish, I had been seriously ill, bodily and mentally. Just like in the doctor's opinion when he talks about the allergy, right? But here's what's more important here is that we had a lot of different ways that we were trying to get us to kind of go, stop it! Right? Doctors, everybody were trying. They even locked us down in the nut ward, maybe did lobotomies even. There was nothing that, doctors are going, I'm out of ideas. I don't know, he won't stop drinking. Right? They tried a lot of different things with us. And he's describing now, this is his first visit to the good doctor. How many people have been at a detox? How many people have been there more than once? Hello? Sometimes we don't get this on the first try, right? So he's talking about this is his first introduction to Dr. Silkworth at Towns Hospital, okay? For that. for what we're trying to get at right now. So what did he learn? It's kind of like when I went to Redgate and they told me, you're an alcoholic, you've got a disease. And I was like, oh, thank you very much. I'm good now. I only needed that 1 week of detox. I got this. Right? I'm done. I'm gone. I'm doing thanks for the info. No, I don't need those silly meetings. I'm not that bad. Right? And off I go, and next thing you know, I'm coming back going, can I come back in? I need to do this all over again. Right? So then he introduces himself to the doctor, and he goes, it relieved me somewhat to learn that alcoholic will is amazingly weakened when it comes to combating liquor, though it often remains strong in other respects. My incredible behavior in the face of a desperate desire to stop was explained. Understanding myself now, I fared forth in high hope. Right? Self-knowledge. Yes. How many people say and believe when they say it to themselves even, I'm going to quit today. That's it. Today's the day. Yeah, I believe it. Today is the day. I just know I mean it. My incredible behavior in the face of this desperate desire to stop was explained. And understanding myself now, I fared forth in high hope. For 3 or 4 months, the goose hung high. Things were good. I went to town regularly and even made a little money. Surely this was the answer. Self-knowledge. I just need somebody to tell me I was an alcoholic. All better now. But it was not. For the frightful day came when I drank once more. The curve of my declining moral and bodily health fell off like a ski jump. After a time, I returned to the hospital. Here I come again. This was the finish. The curtains, it seemed to me. My weary and despairing wife was informed that it would all end with heart failure during delirium tremors, those shakes, grand mal seizures, Or I'd develop wet brain, drool on myself, not know who I am, and babble a lot. Right? Our brain, seriously, that's a real thing. It just kind of like goes, like we fill up so much and it just washes everything away up there and we're like, huh? It's like a blackout that never goes away. So she was informed that it would either my heart would take me or I'd just develop wet brain. Maybe even in a year. She'd soon have to turn me over to the undertaker because I'd be dead or the asylum because I'd be nuts. And they didn't need to tell me. I knew. Almost welcomed the idea. It was a devastating blow to my pride, who thought so well of myself and my abilities, of my capacity to surmount obstacles. I was cornered at last. Now I was to plunge into the dark, joining the endless procession of sots, that's the word for drunks, who had gone on before. Oh, I thought of my poor wife. There had been much happiness after all. What I wouldn't give to make amends. But that was over now. No words can tell of the loneliness, the despair I found in that bitter morass of self-pity. That bad taste in our mouth that just, you can't swallow to get to it. Quicksand stretched out all around me in all directions. I had met my match. I had been overwhelmed. Alcohol was my master. How many places do we get where we're just like, we're surrounded, there's nowhere, I'm just sinking. I feel it inside, I feel it everywhere. There's just that, I get that. I just love that paragraph. I'm like, oh my God. Yeah, so if I was sitting in that, it's kind of like no matter which step I took or where I went, I was going to sink. It's kind of like wearing a soggy wet blanket and, just like, it's everywhere. There's no getting out. I'm just sinking. My whole world is caving in or sinking and I'm in the middle of it. Like an hourglass, being in the middle of an hourglass, just falling. Overwhelmed is a good one, yeah. So, trembling now, I stepped from the hospital, a broken man. Now I'm scared, right? Fear sobered me for a bit. That'll be it, right? This is it. This is the last one, right? Then came that insidious insanity of the first drink. And on Armistice Day, 1934. What's Armistice Day?
What's Armistice Day?
Yeah! Veterans Day. It's still called Armistice Day in some places, but it is November 11th. 1934. Those of you that are kind of trying to read ahead, how many people know what Bill's birthday is? His sober birthday? December 11th, 1934. So, we're getting close. But then came that day on Armistice Day, or Veterans Day, November 11th, and I was off again. Everyone became resigned, just believed, to the certainty that I would have to be shut up somewhere or would be stumbled along to a miserable end. How dark it is before the dawn. Do you know that is the darkest part of the day? Before the sun comes up? Pretty interesting, huh? In reality, that was the beginning of my last debauch, my last drunk. I was soon to be catapulted into what I like to call a fourth dimension. What is a fourth dimension?
Time.
There you go. Very good. There's a scientist in the house. He says time. Okay, so you go to a 3D movie. You got height, width, and what? Depth. A scientist will say the fourth dimension is going to be time. He doesn't say I get rocketed into the dimension of time, but I think for Bill, this is what I've heard, is that he meant spiritual. For him, he's talking about a spiritual, rocketed into the spiritual realm. Okay? I was to know happiness, peace, usefulness in a way of life that is incredibly more wonderful as time passes. Now, so near the end of that bleak November, I sat drinking in the kitchen with a certain satisfaction as I reflected. There was enough gin concealed about the house to carry me through the night and the next day. My wife was at work. I wondered whether I dare hide a full bottle of gin near the head of our bed. I'd need it before daylight. My musing was interrupted by a telephone, the cheery voice of an old school friend.